I spoke with Kosovo's Prime Minister, Albin Kurti, and I began by asking him if Vladimir Putin should be tried for war crimes.
These horrible crimes that we all see happening in eastern Ukraine are definitely war crimes. And it is up to investigators to also prove crimes against humanity and genocide. So I believe that Kremlin has been ordering all of this war machinery into these crimes against unarmed civilians. And at the same time, he should be facing sooner or later international tribunal.
And Kosovo, like Ukraine, has not been granted NATO membership. So do you agree with Zelensky's comments that NATO appeasement of Russia or indecision over membership of countries have left Ukraine unprotected? And do you fear the same for your own country?
Ukraine needs more help from NATO. And from the very beginning, we have supported Ukrainian people in their liberation struggle, and we have expressed our admiration and solidarity with the resilience of Ukrainian people and leadership of President Zelensky. At the same time, we have condemned Russian invasion and military aggression, but we are well aware that NATO represents security for every of its members. Kosovo is still not a member of NATO, but we have NATO within Kosovo. Towards NATO membership, our goal is to first get into Partnership for Peace program. NATO turned 73 years old today, and I remember very well 23 years ago when NATO turned 50 was amidst a bombardment of Milosevic Yugoslavia and Serbia, whose forces, military, police and paramilitary forces were committing genocide against Albanian people. Back then, 860,000 Albanians were expelled from Kosovo. Over 80% of population were expelled from their homes. We had 20,000 women and girls being raped. Over 12,000 unarmed civilians being killed, and 120,000 houses have been destroyed or burned down. So NATO intervened to stop the genocide, and part of the history of Kosovo is NATO. But at the same time, Kosovo is part of the history of NATO. We want to join NATO, and sooner better.
Are you concerned that fear of Russian retaliation will essentially block Kosovo from joining NATO in the short, medium term?
I don't think that Russia can block us. Yet within NATO, we have 4 non-recognizers of our independence: Spain, Slovakia, Romania, and Greece. And I hope that they are going to change their mind and join the rest of 26 members of NATO who recognize independence of Kosovo, and in this way enable us to become members of NATO too.
Are you preparing for a scenario whereby Serbia sees the conflict in Ukraine as an opportunity, perhaps backed by Russia, to stoke conflict in your region, or perhaps even as an excuse to attack your country?
Serbia wants European money, Russian guns, Chinese investments, and American tolerance. Mm-hmm. But Serbia is not neutral. Serbia is on the side of Russian Federation. That's why we have to be vigilant. They have 42 forward operating bases around Kosovo. We're not afraid. We have added 52% of the budget for our defense. But at the same time, we have to be very careful because they might play the role of a proxy in the Western Balkans of Russian Federation. At the same time, we never forget that in 2008, when we declared independence on 17th of February, 3 weeks before that, Gazprom bought majority of shares for oil industry of Serbia. And on the other hand, only 6 months after, in the same year, 2008, Russian Federation annexed South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation has a special office within the Ministry of Defense of Serbia. Mm-hmm. So now, after Russian blitzkrieg in Ukraine failing, we are worried that they might try to expand the conflict, and Western Balkans could be a place where new Russian battlegrounds can develop by their proxies, be that Serbia or Republika Srpska in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Do you feel confident that your government and your position is secure from Russian interference? Because you are a country that would like to join NATO. I think of Montenegro in 2016. Are you concerned about government interference?
We have hybrid war in Western Balkans because there is a Russian humanitarian center in Niš in Serbia, only 100 miles far away from Pristina. At the same time, we have seen that hybrid war is no substitution for war. It is just its preparatory phase. That's why we are worried and vigilant. But again, we are not afraid because with our partners in NATO, especially with United States, Germany, UK, France, and Italy, we know that in Kosovo, you do not defend only people of Kosovo, but at the same time, you defend NATO, since NATO is well integrated within architecture of security of our country.
And what are you doing to buttress your defences against hybrid warfare or actual warfare in the event of a spillover conflict?
We are increasing our capacities of our army. The budget for our defense has been increased by 52% for 2022. At the same time, we are increasing capacities of our police and our intelligence and cooperation with NATO countries.